I want to cover type hints in this video for this community because it's something that courses ignore since it's something optional. So this is what type hints are. Usually you see code is in this form. So we have this function, a parameter, the function returns something, another function, two parameters, it returns something, and then you call the functions, printing the output or not. And so you get normally the output like this, hello John, and 15. But type hints now. Let me introduce to you type hints. Type hints are, as I said, something completely optional. Type hints are used to make the code more clear, easier to read, but they also have downsides, which I'll talk about. So let me introduce now type hints, how you can create type hints. This is how it goes. So when you create a parameter, you can write a colon, a space, and then the type of the parameter, such as str, which means a string. And you can do the same for all other parameters. So again, a colon, and then this would be int. I'll explain why. This also would be an int. So what I'm doing here is I'm recommending that when the function is called, we expect to get a string. So it says this function is expected to get a string as output. If it gets something else, then there will be some problems in the code. But normally you can also call this with a number like 77, and you wouldn't get an error, so you'd still get the output, but the output would not make sense, right? And with this, by saying this, we are suggesting to ourselves or to other programmers who will perhaps continue to extend this program. We're telling them, wait, this is a string, so it's better to use a string there, even though you are not forced to do so. And we can go further and even use here the syntax minus greater than, and then you say str, and this means this function returns a string type, right? Because that's what this function return. So we're simply documenting what this function does. This syntax, that one, does not affect the running of the code, right? So these are like comments. They are just guiding the programmer what to do. Same would be here. So just before this colon, we would add that symbol, and here we would expect an int, because you know, this is add student, so we're working with whole numbers. Like a student is not 1 point something, right? It's an integer, it's a whole number. That's why we say we expect an int for both parameters, so to add two students together. So 5 students plus 10 students, we get 15 students, which is also an integer. And you can even specify type hints for variables. For example, a is equal to 5.7, and you can do here a colon and then specify float in this case, right? So I can run this code and it will not show any problems. So this syntax is part of the type hint, and so is this and that. Sometimes what some developers do, because not everyone likes type hints, right? The community is divided between using them or not using them. I think the best approach is not to use them for every function, because some things are just obvious. So for example, you can just use that for that function, the type hint, and just avoid it for this, because it would be unnecessary. Like that. And also here. So that's shortly about type hints. They are completely optional. As I said, some developers don't like it because Python originally didn't have type hints, right? So this came after version 3.5, and it goes a bit against the philosophy of Python, which is supposed to be cleaner code. Because Python, unlike other languages like Java, where you have to declare the type, of every variable. In Python, you don't do that. So it's dynamic typing, giving the programmer more freedom. But some programmers don't like that, so that's why we have this middle ground of using type hints if we want to do that. As a beginner, I would advise not to use type hints because it makes the syntax harder to learn, since it's a bit more complex like this with these. So this is better. it's more memorable. Later you can of course learn type-ins, it's very easy to do so. So thanks for following this.